Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow, and we are back here in the Hendrickson Library at the Center for the Preservation of Western Civilization at ITR World Headquarters in Central Iowa. John Hendrickson and myself ready to thrill and excite you on another episode of the gold standard of Iowa conservative entertainment. It's been 2 weeks and I nailed it.
That's right, yeah.
All right,
yeah.
well, let's go. John's got a moose-themed coffee mug.
Yeah.
I think that's a moose.
It is, yeah. Yep.
And I got a Dr. Pepper Zero, and you are now ready to get the best that we have to offer, I think. Or maybe not, depending on the case may be. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, yeah.
Good. We had a robust pre-planning, pre-production meeting today.
Yes.
Covered a lot of ground, a lot of the things that we're going to get to today. So anyway, it's getting to be kind of an exciting time in Iowa politics. And so I think the listeners are probably getting frustrated that we haven't been back to talk to them lately. But we will be covering, I don't want to say we're heading into legislative shutdown, but we're heading into the part of session where we start thinking about the legislative shutdown. So we'll cover that and some of the specifics about going into that. Check in on the governor's race and anything else that comes to our mind that I didn't actually jot in my notes, right?
Sounds good.
And then inevitably we'll get to a point in the episode where I ask, do you have anything else when I think we're done? And then you'll bring something else up.
Yes.
So you always have that to look forward to.
That's
It's
right.
kind of like John Hendrickson bonus coverage.
That's right, yeah.
At the end of the show. Okay. I want to remind everyone, if you're listening on audio, whether it be on Apple or Spotify, we are also on video. We're on YouTube. If you want to see our smiling faces and see John's moose mug, you can find that all right there. If you are listening on YouTube and want to take us in the car, we're also on all of your favorite audio platforms. So
I just want to say for the record that there is a moose on here, but it's not a symbol of the Bull Moose Party. So I'm not a progressive.
No,
so.
it looks very Northwoods inspired. So I didn't think that. I thought it was all authentic.
Yep.
You know what? You don't have to give away these logos to people, John.
Yeah.
It's just like the rainbow.
Yeah.
That's God's promise.
That's
okay,
right, yeah.
You do not have to give away these logos. All right, trivia.
I do have
It's
one.
been a while, but
yes,
let's hit it. Give it quickly. What was last week's question?
Yeah, last week we had several people who got this one right, but it was the who was the influential political cartoonist for the Des Moines Register, and he was basically a national cartoonist as well, and he was also influential in terms of conservation in Iowa, and it was Ding Darling.
Yep.
And so several listeners wrote in and or texted, and so including our colleague Dan downstairs got it as well. So this morning, our trivia question is a little more difficult, a little more challenging.
Okay, all right.
But it has to do with Iowa history. And so we had a former governor who President Theodore Roosevelt selected to serve as Secretary of the Treasury. And he did this because this former governor supported Roosevelt in 1900, and he also was a defender of the gold standard in 1896. And I believe he also was a defender of the protective tariff as well. And so we're looking for who was this former governor who served as Secretary of the Treasury in President Theodore Roosevelt's administration.
Okay.
Former Iowa governor.
No idea on that one. Folks, you got your marching orders. You're on your own. Good. Well, you see.
So
Good job. Good job, John. Okay, let's check in real quick before we go a lot further on the state of elections here in Iowa, because, like I said, it's getting to be a pretty exciting time. Not only is the legislature shutting down, we will begin voting in the June primaries in 26 days. Primary day in June, which is the preferred pro-American date on which we should all vote, as opposed to voting absentee, John.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
Good. Okay. I was waiting.
I
needed
yep,
that.
I agree.
Is 46 days away, so it's time. It's go time. What do you got? We're starting to see an increased number of TV ads. That is, when candidates go up on TV and how much they go up on TV is driven by how much money they have or how much they're willing to spend in a primary. Rob Sand has launched. I don't know if it's first TV ad, but I think it's the first kind of broader release. And there's a common theme, I think, in a lot of these ads. And I just want to point out, Rob Sand's ad is him in some sort of a chore coat standing next to the back of a pickup on generic Main Street in Iowa, acting like rural Iowa. Congressman Randy Feenstra has a TV ad up. Him again in some sort of a Carhartt chore coat inside of a barn somewhere in Iowa, presumably. And Zach Lane has also had some TV ads up, and I think it's him in the tractor and the combine, which is on his own family farm, or I presumably could be, because I know that he does have some land. But are you noticing a trend here in these
absolutely.
TV ads?
Yes. Yep.
But it's interesting.
Yep.
Is that just because those are Iowa imagery, or are they identifying that those are the persuadable voters? I mean, a persuadable voter in a Republican primary is far different than one that Rob Sand's probably trying to target. But maybe that's just the way it is in Iowa. Maybe you just need to have that kind of imagery. I just don't remember it being quite so blatant in the past.
I think you're right, and I think a big theme of this election, not just here in Iowa but nationwide, is affordability, and so their candidates are coming across of wanting to, we're working hard and we're relating to you as hardworking Iowans. And
you brought it up, John. Let's take this detour. I'm going to bite. I know that the political class uses that word, affordability. I heard it over and over, that's what Iowans are talking about. Okay, fine. What does that mean? Because so often we get ourselves as the political class so into a theme that I think sometimes we almost forget, and I'm not even going anymore with this question, we forget what the thing really is. When we say affordability, what are we talking about?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question, and it really depends on who you're talking about. But I think for most people, it means, I think, for if we ask someone on the street, what do you mean by affordability? It'd be, meeting everyday expenses, whether that's groceries, gasoline, being able to afford your daily, monthly bills and so forth. I think that's what it is. But, it's also, a lot of there's a poll right here, because this week, of course, is, when the taxes were due. And there was a poll that came out that Americans are still upset about taxes, and that they're, by and large, Americans still believe that they're overtaxed. And that has a direct correlation with affordability, because, more of your income is going towards government. Yeah. Whether that's, regardless of the tax.
Well, certainly tax is part of that.
Yeah.
And it's going to depend on who you ask. If I'm gleaning from Democrat hit ads on Congressman Zach Nunn that affordability is because of Trump's tariffs and whatever else, although, then if you ask from the conservative standpoint, which is going to be ours, so many of these affordability things you can draw a straight line back to liberal progressive Democrat policies. I mean, if you want to talk about tax burden, well, we've made great progress here in Iowa, and we have put more money in Iowans' pockets, but that has been resisted every step of the way by the big spending, big government voices on the left. If you want to talk about inflation, that it could absolutely draw that line straight back to the Biden era massive inflationary spending projects, right?
That's absolutely.
I mean, absolutely. Yeah. And then if you want to talk about housing prices, which in the policy world we often talk about, that's a basic supply and demand. And if you throw open the borders, those folks need someplace to live. And now you got a whole bunch of people trying to still live in the same amount of housing. And you can draw a straight line back to that. So, I mean, my point would be, okay, if we're concerned about affordability, it seems to me Republican candidates to be out making that case.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Well, you're
yeah,
supposed to. It's
yeah.
your job,
That's
John.
right, yeah.
You come in here,
Yeah.
you tell me, "Oh, it's a great point,
Yeah,
Chris."
yeah.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
for good programming,
That's right.
and we like that.
I especially like the the consequences of throwing open the border.
Yeah, I thought you'd
Yeah,
like that. I need to keep you fired up.
because it not only creates problems in housing, but it also lowers wages, and so that's
Well, and it's demand on
Yes,
services.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
let's ask the folks in. Well, I'm not even going to go down
Yeah.
that path. We all know what's going on there. Is that if more people chasing a finite amount of resources, the price of those things will go up.
Yeah.
It should
And
not
you're-
be a surprise.
And you're absolutely right on the inflation front, because that's what caused the affordability crisis to begin with, was that record high inflation. And the reason we had that was the massive levels of government spending that started with COVID.
Right.
And that's the danger now that we're seeing, is if we continue to spend, that's just going to continue.
Right. So they're making this point in the governor's race. I think that's right. I think you're going to hear a lot of talk about that, because that is the buzzword, affordability. But my point being, it's one of these political words that means different things to different people. It's a lot like when we talk about affordable housing. To the left, to the big local government folks, that means putting low-income housing on every corner. But to pro-business Republicans, conservatives, it's just about getting more just day-to-day housing out there. It just means different things to different people.
Yeah.
And so we got to be really careful when we start using it. It's not a criticism of using the word, because it is the thing.
Yeah. There's a danger thing in public policy, and that and kind of regardless of the issue, is whenever you make something, and this is sort of a lesson from Johnson's Great Society, when you declare war on something, he declared war on poverty, but
Right.
if there's a housing crisis, if there's this crisis or that crisis, the temptation then is, we just got to just spend money, create credit programs and incentive programs,
Right.
and just to look like we're doing something. And oftentimes there's not a lot of oversight to even see if that spending's even working. So that's sort of the danger when we start applying that kind of rhetoric to these policy problems.
Look, as long as we have elections, incumbents will chase programs that look good in those elections.
Yeah.
It just is. And I get it. And I understand.
I saw a social media post where a small ice cream store, I think it was, blaming their problems on tariffs. And so I don't. I mean,
that's also the reason that the indoor golf project in Johnston continued. If you remember, the reason that his indoor golf project that has been given lots of property tax dollars in Johnston hasn't gotten off the ground, that is still a weed field, is because of Trump's tariffs.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, I love it. It brings me joy that this is the thing, because it's entertainment for people like us. No, it's not because of Trump's tariffs. It's because your project isn't economically viable. So, okay. But hey, look, get me wrong. City of Johnston, go ahead and throw money at them. Maybe, but whatever. Okay. So also, I had held out hope that we would have, and I'm beginning to wonder if it's going to happen, a Republican gubernatorial debate. And I don't know. I haven't seen much other than maybe a little bit of online chatter, is that Iowa Public Television is trying to organize, you got Iowa Press and all that. But to date, I know one candidate, I think it was Zach Lane, was being critical of Congressman Feenstra for not agreeing to that debate, and therefore wouldn't have them all there. Look, I get it. I think it seems to me that Congressman Feenstra is kind of doing a half pivot to the general election. I don't think he's got it all wrapped up, but I can understand that move is why he might, if that is the case, why he might not want to do that debate. But I'd like to see it happen. I'd just like to see all these candidates on stage with each other. Now, that having been said, they're all going to gang up on Congressman Feenstra, and probably to an unfair degree. So I don't know. I get it. I get where he's coming from, but I still, I guess, selfishly, for the entertainment value of it, wouldn't mind watching that happen. I'm guessing you're in the same, because we're some of the rare folks that would actually tune into public television.
No, I would actually like to see that. I would actually like to see even more interviews just with individual candidates, because I know there's been a few, but I'd like to see more actually, and because I'd like to.
So I don't know if we'll see. I think we need maybe 2-3 more weeks of TV ads, of messaging, and the attention will continue to build. Of really, for me to start trying to handicap where the Republican primary will fall out at. I just don't have a really good sense of that yet, but I might. Okay. Switching gears to the legislature, John. We're within about a week of when they are scheduled to be done for the year. It looks likely, or at least very possible, that they'll be going into overtime this year. Progress, I believe, on property taxes. Starting to see a little bit more movement, a little bit more changing of proposals to try and find that middle ground. I think there's 3 or 4 things probably 3 things that need to at least are going to be part of this conversation. One's property taxes. 2 is they're going to have to pass a budget, which I believe will happen, although that takes time. Is your sense, you follow this as much as I do, they're not that far apart on the actual budget.
No, it's actually fairly close, yeah.
So there have been times when that is actually a real challenge. I don't think that's going to be the case this year.
No, I should have brought those numbers. I have them downstairs, but just from the targets that they released, but they're not far apart.
And briefly, I know we've talked about this in years past, budget targets is for each budget bill, subject area at the leadership level will apportion a target, a certain amount of spending in each one of those bills, and then they assemble it all into one unified number. So there'll be this many $1 billion for health and human services. There'll be X number of dollars for education, justice systems, judicial branch, whatever it might be. And then they come to it. So the targets are very close, right? Which is just them hammering out. I don't want to say they're insignificant, because they are significant proposals, probably policy differences, but that will get there. Then still kind of lingering out there is what, if anything, is going to be done on eminent domain specific to the carbon capture pipeline. I think that is an issue that also may or may not overlap the budget. And then, so I think those are the big pieces. I saw yesterday the House, you had this morning, John, passed the One Big Beautiful School Choice Bill.
Yes.
So that was kind of fun, if nothing else in the title. But very briefly, I know we didn't intend to talk about it, kind of what was in that. There's a lot of, I think, technical cleanup stuff with charters and private schools and everything. But anything in there that really caught your eye?
Not really. And this is terrible, but it wasn't one I was really following that closely. So, but I think it was. Well, I probably shouldn't comment, because I want to say that was the one that was more geared towards charters.
There was a lot of charter language. I glanced at it. They did amend that towards the end, and had some really good language in there to protect private schools from over-regulation by the Department of Education, which I think will be really good going forward. So that's in there as well. Anything you can do to sort of secure the freedoms that alternative education, whether it be charters or private homeschool, enjoy, I think is a very good thing.
The one I've been following, and I hope he'll make the finish line, is that would require at least at the Regents, and I think even at maybe even the other colleges. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the language, but would require a history requirement and government.
Right.
And so I think that's a very important one. So I've been tracking that one.
Good. I do want to circle back on the property tax things. I didn't mean to gloss over that too quickly, but there now seem to be if settling down into two proposals. The Senate passed theirs, I guess, about a week ago, with a significant revision. And according to Senate Ways and Means Chairman Dan Dawson, in an effort to move toward the House position to try and find some common ground, moved away from the more, I guess we'll say, ambitious parts of the senior exemption. Would that be fair?
Absolutely, yeah.
Trimmed back the local option sales tax proposal from 1.5% to 1.25%. A few other things with how the formulas work inside of Senator Dawson's bill. Then on the other hand, I think just this week you saw House Republicans offer an amendment on their bill, which they have not passed out of the chamber yet. And then Speaker Grassley had a press conference. We went into great detail of what that proposal is, where they have sort of said that this is their agreement with Governor Reynolds. And I think there's still a few pieces to be ironed out, but more or less the House has agreed with at least the governor on their version, which does not have some of the components of the Senate bill, has a more clean 2% revenue limitation. And the piece that I think both chambers are agreeing on, the Senate has a 2% in there as well, structured different, but moving from a homestead property tax credit to an exemption. Again, to our listeners, I don't expect them to care a lot. I think the thing they need to care about is that they still get that benefit, because it's like we've always said, John, it's how much do you pay is the thing they care about the most. The House has some TIF language in there on tax increment fine. Anything else in the House bill that was a significant change from the previous House and Governor bill? Because I don't think it was any radical departures.
No, there was not a lot of departures.
Yeah,
it was mainly the homestead exemption being revised.
Right. So I think now where you're at is, because we're not right down in a shutdown yet, you're going to see messaging back and forth between these two sides representing that their version's better. You'll see rank and file legislators saying we're going to hold out for our version of the bill. I suspect they believe that is the case, and in the end, no, they're going to move towards one another and cut a deal. It seems to me, a consensus among all parties that they need to do a bill, and there has to be a meeting of the minds. And you can't have that if either side is completely dug in. Now, I think from where we're at, the House Governor bill has the 2% idea that we originally have proposed. So we like that a little bit more than what's in the Senate. And there's not the changes to rollback in the House bill, which I think it makes it a little cleaner, a little easier to understand. There is a way to do the rollback thing. It gets really sticky, and I know that's something that Senator Dawson has really been wrestling with, trying to figure that out, and we'll see. But anyway, there'll be some compromise position in the end, and that's compromise isn't always a dirty word in politics. Sometimes you have to have it.
That's right. Yeah. No, it's.
Did I miss anything on any of that, John?
No.
I wanted to give the folks a sense. It's really
Yeah.
hard to get into the specifics of these bills because it's a lot of times has to be understood on a piece of paper because it's a lot of figures and numbers and everything. And so we kind of give you the highlights. One of the things, though, too, and I wanted to briefly touch on this because we're at the end. So if you find this boring, this is the point where you can just press stop or move on to your, if you want to listen to, sports talk radio or stuff. This would be the point in the episode if you don't want to geek out with Chris and John. One of the things that really impacted the debate on property taxes this week was the release of the fiscal notes. And I don't know, John, if we've ever really talked about fiscal notes on the show before.
I don't believe so. At least I don't recall anyways.
Our listeners that are at the Capitol, legislators, this is all old news, and they'll probably just listen and say, well, you got it wrong, Chris, which is fine. But we've got a lot of listeners that don't go to the Capitol and don't understand this process, but it's a pretty interesting, important part. So when there is a proposed bill that has a fiscal impact, you can request, or it's done automatically, the Legislative Services Agency will generate a fiscal note, which is a document which has a somewhat of a high-level summary of what the bill does. And section by section, what is the fiscal impact of each one of those provisions? It's usually aimed primarily at what is the fiscal impact to the state budget, less so to local budgets, and less so to what it might do, for example, in the property tax bill, the individual taxpayer. But it is always interesting to see what this does, and it can really impact a bill and its direction, its reception. If it has a really big negative impact on the state general fund, then folks like, whoa, hang on a second. So anyway, so these fiscal notes came out on both bills, and I know you'll appreciate this, John. I want to give you a chance. The fiscal notes themselves were almost as complicated as the bills themselves,
yes,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it took, usually you can kind of read a one-page fiscal note. It's like, oh, I understand what this does. I'm not sure that a whole lot of light bulbs went off even with the release of the fiscal notes.
No.
So
and
talk about that.
Some of the fiscal notes came out with revisions. But these are very complex bills, and if you ever looked at bill language, and reading a bill is very complex,
Right.
what for me when I look at a fiscal note, and just whether it's coming from the Iowa Legislature or another legislative chamber, a lot of times what I'll do is if I see a fiscal note, I'll look at that first.
Right. For sure.
Because it like you said, you have that high level summary, and that helps. Sometimes some legislatures will actually have a summary in addition to a fiscal note, which is even better. But a fiscal note, you have that good summary, but then you also can see the fiscal impact, as you said. But also, LSA has access to do those type of things that a lot of people don't. A lot of organizations don't. So you get that benefit of seeing, like how a tax cut might work. And
right. They can go straight to the Department of Management and access all that information on local government, on property taxes, on income tax. They go straight to the Department of Revenue, who has all of the detailed information and can generate runs in short order.
Yeah.
So it is. It's often we're really hungry to get that information here.
They're very important documents, and they help clarify bills, and they help make them easier to understand, I think, and they do have consequences because, like you said, if they sometimes that number scares can scare legislators.
And even on these property tax bills, they had a big disclaimer on all of them that saying these different provisions of the bill all are interconnected. They all react to one another, and you can't look at each provision. So you could look at, for example, the property tax bills might have say this is going to result, if you make a change to the school funding formula, it's going to pull a certain amount of money out of the state general fund because it's going to change the calculation of the school funding formula. Okay, that's one piece. And you might look over here that if we change this rollback exemption formula, it could have this negative impact on property taxes. But then over here on the other side, we've got a 2% revenue limitation, which is going to pull down their ability. And they even admit we can't calculate how the different pieces work together. It's hard. It's all hard. And I guess it's a little window into how property taxes function, how local government budgets function different than, say, individual income tax, where it's here's the rate, here's how much it generates, and we're going to cut the rate, and here we go. Now, the point I want to make, coming all the way back around to all that, though, John, is yes, there's a whole lot of moving parts, but I think inside of that shows why a uniform revenue limitation is important and valuable in this debate, because if there's all these moving parts, you're not quite sure what the net of that might be. But if you say there's the revenue limitation, which exists in these various bills, you know that you're restraining the spending. And the spending is what drives this. The spending drives property taxes. And if you restrain the spending, you get relief.
That's right, yeah. Yep.
So through all of that complexity, it should show why an across-the-board limitation makes a lot of sense. because we may not write this property tax system. If we were starting from scratch, the system wouldn't look like this, but it's the system we have.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to work within that.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of talking, John.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And, it all starts with spending. And I think that's what you have to do when you look at these things is it's so easy to get distracted in different parts of the bills because they get so technical. And so, there's so many divisions. But what you said is spot on because the overall main idea, the main principle of this is what it does to spending.
That's right.
And if it doesn't achieve that goal like you outlined, then it's going to be like every previous property tax reform where it's going to fall short.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that foundation has to be there.
Yep.
And it's so easy to get distracted from that.
Well, I get asked a lot, how much longer is session going to last? When do you think it's going to? I don't know. I really don't this time. I think we've got a couple weeks left, maybe something like that. There is a certain amount of time that's required just to physically draft bills, specifically the budget bills, pass them, move them around, amendments, and that takes several days on its own. But it's hard to know exactly how much LSA's got teed up and ready to go. It crescendos. There's a momentum to it. As soon as they start moving towards it, things kind of pick up the pace. And going back to the idea that the primary election's right around the corner, and you're going to have a fair number of legislators that want to not only just get out of the building and go campaign, but another little piece that I'm not sure the general public appreciates, the political action committees, PACs, the money from lobbyists, per se. I hate using that in a pejorative. Legislators can't collect that money until session's over. It's an ethical restriction. And so they want to go raise the money to win their campaigns, and that is going to be a pressure on them to get done. So I don't know if I'm taking the over-under on a certain date, but it will get resolved here at some point. John, anything else?
I do, yeah.
Let's go. Yep. This is the Hendrickson bonus coverage.
That's right, yeah.
We need a little jingle for it or something.
That's right,
What's the...
Who was that angry guy in 60 Minutes that used to have...
This business will get out of control. It'll get out of control, and we'll be lucky to live through it.
I was struggling. I didn't know what on the soundboard to go to there, but you can really never go wrong with Fred Thompson.
Yeah, it could get out of control.
I will endeavor at some point to find a little something for the sound pad, the soundboard here for the Hendrickson bonus coverage. Right. So, John, you got anything else for us today?
So, this week, it's on tax day, the April 15th, our good friends at ALEC and Jonathan Williams released the 19th edition of Rich States, Poor States. And so I just wanted to share with our listeners that Iowa has improved in the rankings in this edition. And so we were, in the last year's edition, we were number 30th. And this year we went up to number 25. And so a large part of that is because some of the tax reforms we've done, especially the flat tax, but also some of the other things that we've done. But the top 5 states, Utah for 19 years in a row continues to be the top state in their index, but followed by Tennessee, Idaho, North Carolina, Arizona. Those are the top 5. Interesting, Arkansas moved up to 6th. Indiana 7th, Oklahoma 8th, and our neighbor South Dakota is 9th. Of course, South Dakota being a no income tax state, and but this is just one index that we like to follow, and so. But what it shows is that Iowa's improving within the climate, and a lot of people would say, well, 5 spots doesn't really show a lot of improvement, but the reason for that is there's a lot of, the last few years, including this year, has just been off the charts in terms of what states are doing with tax policy. And I just saw today that South Carolina is the newest state to join the state flat tax club, and so Iowa has done some great things, but all these other states are doing great things too, and so it's been very competitive. The other thing I want to talk about is just one alarming thing coming out of the state of Virginia, where we supposedly I think a lot of people have buyer's remorse over this new governor they have. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I think is very alarming that we need to keep an eye on is they
I know where you're going. I saw this one too.
Okay,
John.
yeah, they've now have the law where basically they've joined the National Popular Vote Club, which means that regardless of how they vote in the next presidential election, they will give their electoral votes to the winner of the National Popular Vote. And so I think this is a way to undermine the Electoral College. I believe it's unconstitutional, and it's a very dangerous thing. And so maybe we could talk about that on another podcast.
Well, I'm going to give you I'm going to give you my quick take, John, and then I do want to hold it for when we can give that conversation what it deserves. Two things. One, that will last nationally up until the first time a Republican candidate wins this hypothetical national popular vote. The first time that these folks in this blue state have to then turn around and cast their electoral votes for the Republican candidate is when I think you'll see it start to fall apart. Secondly, there's no such thing as a national popular vote. It has to be understood. It doesn't exist. How in the world can you imagine some of the recount things that we have been through in the past, call it 25 years, going all the way back to Florida in 2000, Georgia, Pennsylvania, whatever these were. But yet now you would have to do it at a national level. And now we're all sitting around staring at what's going on to ballot collection in Southern California. Look, there is the philosophical reason for the Electoral College. Because states' rights, and we understand that, and it's important, and it's the last thing of the way the founders put this together, besides maybe, 2 senators per state, which we kind of made not matter as much with 17. But like the Electoral College matters for those philosophical states' rights reasons. But from a practical standpoint, you now are taking a state like Iowa, which has terrific election laws, where we maintain our voter rolls, where we prosecute election misconduct, and we know the rules of game, and it's done very well. And now we would be beholden to other states which don't care, which will back up the truck in the middle of the night with a bunch of ballots into the election office with curtains pulled down over it, and we're the bad guys if we ask the questions about, is that really okay? Why in the world would any state... Well, I know the answer to this because this isn't a hypothetical, John. Why would any state want to make sure that those are the rules of the game for everybody nationally, not just in their blue enclave? The answer is, John, so they can win.
That's right, yeah.
By any means necessary. Yep. And then at the same time, gaslight Republicans into thinking they're the ones that want to tweak the rules of the game. So, is it about just the Electoral College? Sort of. But it's also about just let's make sure that nobody can get in the way of our ballot harvesting, of our making sure that the rules work for us. And I don't want to be beholden to the way things work in Southern California or some other big blue state. And here's the other thing, John, and I know you're getting upset because it's your talk and now you got me going. No. Here's the other thing. That now the entire presidential election is going to be decided in the top 10 to 20 TV markets in the country.
Yep, that's right.
So if you live in New York, LA, Chicago, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, now your vote matters. And the rest of us can just sit here and enjoy it.
No, you're absolutely right.
I'd be happy to have this conversation in depth with you at another day. Yeah. Am I right, John?
No, I would agree. And the only thing I would add is that this is a danger where they politicize in the term democracy, and they argue that this is more democratic, and it's a completely I would say lie in terms of how they define that term.
Right.
So, but no, you're absolutely right. The consequences of this.
It is dangerous. It is subversive. It is un-American and must be resisted at all costs, regardless of which party it helps.
That's right.
In the next election.
Yeah.
but especially because it helps the Democrats the next
Yeah.
time.
But it's important to talk about. I mean, because it's people have to understand why the Electoral College is important.
Look, it's okay. We
Why-
could go all
yeah.
into the history around it and the history of states' rights and everything. States matter. States' rights matter. Federalism matters. And we can say this because we're involved in state level policy, John, and this is where I want to wrap this up at. What states do matters. The authority of states. The states created the federal government in the first place. That power must be preserved in order to maintain the American system of politics and government and our ability to try things like new tax policies, the laboratories of democracy. That all gets lost when we all are just part of this massive federal construct
That's right.
that with a national popular vote has less and less individual oversight from the governed. That's what I have to say.
Yep. I agree.
Okay. Are you happier now that
Yes, yep.
you got me going?
Yep.
All right, good. All right, folks, thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends. And with that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.